See, I'm gonna tell you the story. What happened?
Okay.
He dissed me on a record.
Right.
I didn't respond.
Right.
I didn't respond.
Right.
Then he dissed me again. He went back in the studio again. I think he was mad that I didn't respond because this dude owns half of the Source magazine. That's why it hit my radar.
Right.
But my manager, once again, Paul Rosenberg, as we know him, tried to talk me out of it.
You hate to spoil a day, but this doesn't bring me no joy to say. Guess that Coil Ray feeds in the toy.
I don't got nothing against Eminem. I got nothing against Eminem. Eminem can rap, but I care about us more. I don't want to go through. I don't want to talk about it no more. What the f you want me to do? Come on, man. My daughter came into the industry figuring that, hey, I gotta be cool with Eminem because everybody's against my dad. Come on, man. All me and Eminem gotta do is sit down and talk with each other. Let's sit down and talk. Let's battle. Let's do whatever. But let's at least face to face meet each other.
Some names in hip-hop are just off limits when it comes to beef, and everybody knows it. But for some reason, Benzino thought it was a good idea to take shots at Eminem. Not the smartest move. And let's just say he got a front row seat to the ruthless side of Slim Shady.
I'm definitely bringing a lot of success to this man. But you know what? Like, honestly, like this dude, I buried him already. He's speaking from the grave, Angie. This dude is speaking from the grave.
This whole mess kicked off back in 2002, and ever since, Benzino and Eminem have been locked in an endless back and forth, throwing diss tracks and insults like it's a never-ending grudge match. Word is, Benzino started it by going off on M during a Hot 97 interview. And from there, things just kept spiraling. One day, he's on talk shows getting all emotional, saying he wants to squash the whole beef.
Oh, man. All me and Eminem gotta do is sit down and talk with each other. Let's sit down and talk. Let's battle. Let's do whatever. But let's at least face to face meet each other.
And the next, he's right back at it, taking more shots.
Let's talk about Eminem, yo. That's why we here tonight. Huh? Eminem. Everybody down with Eminem. And my thing is this, bro. My thing is this.
Of course, 50 Cent got pulled into the mix. And if there's one thing about 50, it's that he never lets anything slide.
Yesterday, 50 Cent shared a video of Benzino on the floor with a knife crying.
Plus, he and Eminem, they're tight. So yeah, Benzino didn't just have Eminem coming for him. He had 50 in the mix too. Safe to say, he probably regretted every decision along the way. Let's get into it. Back in 2002, Eminem was already a hip-hop megastar, and in May of that year, he dropped The Eminem Show, his third major label album. The project was an instant smash, debuting at #1 and selling over 1.3 million copies in its first week. It got a solid 4 mic rating from The Source, which at the time was co-owned by Benzino and Dave Mays. But M wasn't happy. He felt his album deserved the rare and highly respected 5 mic rating, and when he didn't get it, he started throwing shade at The Source and refusing to do interviews with the magazine. Benzino didn't take that lightly. He already believed Eminem was overhyped because he was white, and that his success was hurting hip-hop. That tension quickly turned into an all-out war, with both sides dropping diss tracks. Benzino put out Pull Your Skirt Up and Die Another Day.
You ain't repping the streets, you from the outskirts of Detroit, where the big me.
While Eminem fired back with Nail in the Coffin, The Sauce, and Bully, all of which tore Benzino apart.
Claim to be no Ray Benzino, an 83-year-old fake Benzino.
But Benzino wasn't just fighting with music. He used his influence at The Source to go after Eminem in a much bigger way. He reportedly spent $15,000 to obtain what he called the racist tapes, old recordings of a teenage Eminem rapping offensive lyrics about black women.
He wasn't around black people. He made a racist tape with 2 other guys. Those guys came and sold me the tape. I paid $15,000. Those guys says, hey, they show up in the Source office like, hey.
One track from 1993, Foolish Pride, had M using racial slurs, while another from 1988 had him spitting more disrespectful lines. Benzino and Mays made sure everyone knew about it, posting the tapes on The Source's website, holding a press conference, and claiming Eminem had a hidden agenda to steal hip-hop from its roots. Eminem responded with a statement, admitting that the tapes were real but explaining that he had made them when he was young, angry, and heartbroken over a failed relationship with a black girlfriend. He called it a moment of stupidity and frustration, and hoped people wouldn't let Benzino twist it into something bigger than it was. The whole situation led to a messy legal battle. Eminem initially won a ruling against the source, which was found guilty of violating a restraining order by distributing the full songs online. They were ordered to pay Eminem's legal fees, but a judge later ruled they could still release a CD with 20-second clips of the controversial tracks. They did just that in their February 2004 issue, which featured a stock image of Eminem on the cover with the headline "Cleaning Out White America's Closet" and a deep dive into his so-called madness. That move backfired badly. The source took heavy criticism for how they handled the situation, and by the next year, Benzino was ousted from the magazine, partly due to the shady conflict of interest during his feud with Eminem. Meanwhile, Eminem kept winning, going on to become one of the best-selling artists in history, with over 220 million records sold worldwide. For years, things were quiet between them. From 2005 to 2022, the beef seemed to be dead, at least on the surface. Eminem barely mentioned Benzino, and while Benzino was sometimes asked about it in interviews, his responses were all over the place. In 2012, he admitted on Rap Fix Live that he had been wrong, and that Eminem was a great lyricist who deserved his place in hip-hop. He even acknowledged M's role in bridging the gap between cultures and races. But just when it seemed like things were officially over, Benzino started stirring the pot again. In March 2022, he tweeted that the beef was done, that he had no hate for Eminem's fans, and that he recognized Eminem's contributions to hip-hop. But 2 months later, he switched gears and blasted the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for inducting Eminem, calling it just as out of touch as the Grammys and saying it had no respect for black culture or hip-hop.
When you look at Eminem and his fans, they're the most craziest, disrespectful fans that we have in the culture. It's our culture. It's ours. It's black people's culture. It's us. Why should somebody else get the credit to be the face of it?
So now, in 2024, the question is, why is this beef heating up again? And more importantly, why do people still care? Well, the answer isn't simple. Benzino and Eminem never actually squashed their issues face to face. Despite years of silence, it was never truly over. And with the way things have been going lately, it looks like this old feud might just be picking up steam again. Even though it seemed like the whole Eminem versus Benzino feud should have died out years ago, it just kept lingering. Benzino would constantly bring up M's race as a way to discredit him, and in December 2023, Eminem finally decided to fire back with Doomsday Part 2. It caught a lot of people off guard, considering M had pretty much ignored the whole thing for decades, but the second he dropped that track, the internet went crazy. Not only did he go after Benzino, but he also dragged Benzino's daughter, Coi Leray, into the mix. M implied that Benzino's messy drama had ruined Koi's chances of getting a feature from him.
You hate to spoil a day, but this doesn't bring me no joy to say. Guess that Coi Leray feeds in the toilet, eh? God!
Coi clapped back, basically saying, "Man, who the hell said I wanted a Eminem feature? Imagine Eminem on Wanna Come Through." And since Coi and Benzino already have a rocky relationship, Eminem mentioning her only made things worse. Benzino, of course, wasn't about to let that slide. He fired back with a couple of diss tracks and then told his fans to hail him as the winner of the beef, which, let's be real, nobody was doing. But that didn't stop him from hopping on every podcast and media outlet he could find, flipping between downplaying the drama and stirring it back up again.
He thought he could just diss me and mention my princess, my baby. He thought he could mention the princess. She ain't done nothing but speak highly of this dude, bro. Why would you say some like that?
The most unexpected moment, Benzino breaking down in tears while talking about the beef. Nobody saw that coming. But let's be honest, none of this probably even fazed Eminem. Out of all the people M has clashed with over his career, Benzino is one of the least concerning. And that's because Eminem has had some serious backing. If you know anything about gang culture, then you know the Sons of Samoa are not the ones to mess with. They might seem laid back, but if you cross them, things can get real ugly real fast. And guess what? Those were the guys who had Eminem's back. So when certain gang members thought they could press Slim Shady, let's just say it didn't end well for them. M even hinted at this in his verse on 911 when he rapped, "Everywhere we go, people know we roll deep as FK, 40, 50 Samoans. They knowin' when Debo was."
Everywhere we go, people know we roll deep as 40, 50 Samoans, ain't no one.
Back in 2020, Monster Gunja, the nephew of Booyah Tribe, dropped some wild details during an Australian radio interview. He revealed that his uncles weren't just rappers. They were also working as security for Eminem, and it wasn't your typical stand around and look intimidating kind of security job. Apparently, Eminem was being extorted by the Los Angeles Crips, and Booyah Tribe stepped in to handle the situation.
And didn't they do security for Eminem a little bit when M used to come out to the West Coast? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Hamburg was, or
Eminem was getting extorted by some Crips.
Meaning that they're saying you can't come out here unless you pay us, or...
According to Monsta Gunja, Paul Rosenberg, Eminem's manager, reached out because M was in trouble. The Crips were trying to make him check in, meaning he had to pay up or face consequences. Instead of caving, Booyah Tribe stepped in, shut the whole thing down, and in return, they got a feature on hip-hop as in a state of 911 with Be Real. Now, this whole checking in thing isn't just an Eminem problem, it's something that happens to a lot of rappers, especially when they travel to cities with heavy gang activity like LA. The idea is that when a celebrity steps into certain territories, they have to pay respect, which usually means paying actual money, to the local gangs to avoid problems.
You better check in, Magic, nigga, I ain't say I'm gang Crip. Straight up. Crip, nigga. Porn, nigga. Crip, nigga.
Some see it as a way to keep the peace, while others call it straight-up extortion. And if you refuse, well, things can get dangerous real quick. But Eminem wasn't about to play that game. He wasn't the type to bow down. And when the Crips tried to strong-arm him, he had the right people in his corner. The second the Samoans got involved, the Crips backed off, and that was that. This might also explain why Eminem never seemed scared of Suge Knight, even though Suge was one of the most feared figures in the music industry. The beef between Eminem and Suge doesn't get talked about as much as you'd expect, but it's another crazy story that shows just how wild the hip-hop scene really was back then. It all started when Dr. Dre walked away from Death Row Records. Once he signed Eminem and later brought in 50 Cent, the tension with Suge Knight only got worse. Suge already had a grudge against Dre, so when Eminem and 50 started dominating the industry, they automatically became part of that beef. And knowing Suge, there was no way he was going to just let that slide. He tried messing with them more than once. One of the wildest moments went down during the filming of Inda Club. Everything was fine until someone suddenly shouted, "Suge Knight is here!" And just like that, chaos broke out. Suge rolled up, unannounced as always, with about 30 guys, reportedly from a Mexican gang, just to flex and remind everyone who he was.
This is why I always respected Eminem, 50, and that was with us. So Suge came, he had some Mexican niggas. Now we from New York. You ain't never seen a with a tattoo on his foot, just lights the cigar, and it's the shit about Suge. He lights the cigar, and he trying to see what you gonna do. So Eminem, 50, everybody outside.
That was classic Suge, pulling up deep, making sure people felt his presence. Eminem was there too, and as expected, he didn't flinch.
This is when I knew Eminem was real. He's like, I don't give a man. This is when I knew, I'm like, Eminem is a real these niggas 50 outside, what's up?
But that wasn't the only time Suge tried to press him. At the 2001 Source Awards, things nearly got out of hand. M was performing with D12, and the whole event already felt tense. Usually artists had their security close, but for some reason that night, bodyguards had to sit separately. That left M wide open, and Suge knew it.
Into his seat, I'm standing off to the side, and M was cut off on his way to his seat, and all these guys in red shirts surrounded him. And I'm looking at M's face, and I'm looking at these guys, I'm like, something ain't right.
According to M's former bodyguard, Big Naz, things got sketchy fast. M found himself surrounded by a group of guys in red shirts, clearly affiliated with the Bloods, a gang Suge had strong ties with. Big Naz noticed something was off and rushed across the venue to get to M, realizing pretty quickly that this wasn't just a coincidence. These guys had been sent by Suge.
This death row about, this death row life. I was like, death row, what does it got to do with him? He said, hey man, Suge sending him.
But the most intense moment between Suge and Eminem happened in Hawaii, of all places. What was supposed to be a chill getaway with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre turned into a full-on security crisis. Big Naz later revealed that there was intel suggesting Suge had plans to go after Eminem during the trip. And this wasn't just some vague threat. Suge allegedly sent over 50 of his guys from LA to Hawaii just to stir up trouble. The second they landed, the whole mood shifted. Instead of a relaxing vacation, they were suddenly on high alert, gearing up like they were heading into battle. Bulletproof vests became part of their daily outfits, firearms were kept close, and even the Honolulu police had to step in, assigning officers to keep an eye on M and his crew for protection. Big Naz later described how surreal it was. "We thought we were going on vacation, but it turned into a nightmare. We had our wives, some people even brought their kids, and the moment we landed, everything went crazy. Honolulu police had to rush us to a transport van just to keep us safe. But here's the thing. If Suge had ever actually put hands on Eminem, it wouldn't have ended well for him. And that's because Eminem had serious backing from a gang that even Suge knew not to mess with, the Sons of Samoa.
I was like, what's up? Suge Knight scared of you. Suge Knight scared of you. And everyone I talked to, they, man, is Suge really this, really that? I was like,
but
I'm Samoan, man. I don't give a I don't care. You King Kong, you Godzilla, you gonna get your ass.
Like we mentioned before, these guys were no joke. They had been running things since the mid-1980s, starting in Long Beach, California, before expanding their influence across Hawaii and major cities like San Jose, Oakland, and Hayward. And they weren't just some random street gang. They had deep connections, especially through the Samoan family, which only made them more powerful. Law enforcement had been keeping tabs on them for years, describing them as a gang that used pure intimidation to get what they wanted. They were known for extortion, drug heists, and if things got out of hand, even homicide.
What kind of weapons do the gangs use? Your gang, for example? 38, 22, 357, 9, AK. It's pretty heavy sort of
Their reputation wasn't just talk. They had no problem throwing hands with anyone. And their biggest rivals were the Tongan Crips, which only made things even more intense. If you ever saw someone rocking a Seattle Mariners logo, there was a good chance they were repping SOS. They also had specific hand signs, which weren't just for show. Every symbol meant something, and flashing the wrong one in the wrong place could get someone in serious trouble. Long Beach detective Norm Sorensen even told the Los Angeles Times back in 1990 that the Sons of Samoa were a different breed, especially when they were drinking or on something. According to him, these guys had no tolerance for disrespect. If someone even looked at them wrong, a fight was almost guaranteed to break out. He straight up said they were the kind of gang that would fight at the drop of a hat, making them one of the most unpredictable and dangerous groups around. Their reputation for violence wasn't just hype either. Everyone in the streets knew that SOS meant business, whether it was through intimidation, enforcing their dominance, or straight up brawling with their enemies. They had no problem making it clear that they weren't the kind of crew anyone wanted to cross.
Did you catch this? 100%. Samoan. Lift up your shirt, bro. Lift up your shirt. Lift up your shirt. Show your tat. Look at that. Samoan.
What really made the Sons of Samoa SOS gangs stand out from the rest wasn't just their reputation for being tough. It was the fact that, in a lot of ways, they didn't fit the typical gang mold. See, most gangs have these brutal initiation rituals, whether it's getting jumped in by taking a beating from members or being forced to commit some crime to prove loyalty. But SOS? They didn't really operate like that. There was no formal process, no big moment where someone got initiated the way you'd expect with other gangs. Instead, joining SOS was just something that happened naturally. It was more about survival, about Samoans sticking together in a world where they felt like they had no choice but to have each other's backs. And honestly, when you look at the numbers, it's not hard to see why they felt that way. In 2000, the entire Samoan population in Oakland was only 614 people. That's barely 0.15% of the city's total population, practically a drop in the ocean compared to other communities. So when you're that outnumbered, when you're that small of a group in a city where gang culture is a major part of life, what do? You band together. You create your own support system, and for many, that's exactly what SOS was. It wasn't just about crime. It was about making sure nobody messed with their people. A friend of the Samoan family once put it in a way that really makes you think. In court records, he described SOS as having a heavy presence in places like San Jose, but also in places you wouldn't normally expect to find a gang, like Samoan churches. And that's where things get really interesting, because inside those churches, SOS members would talk about things like respect, tradition, and the importance of honoring their elders. These were deeply ingrained values in Samoan culture. things that had been passed down for generations. But once they stepped outside those church doors, it was a whole different story. The same guys talking about respect and family were out running the streets doing whatever they had to do. It was like living two lives, one tied to their roots, the other about survival.
I won't hesitate to shoot anyone.
You went?
No, I wouldn't hesitate to shoot anyone if they come in.
And the thing is, not everyone saw SOS as just a gang. Yeah, they had run-ins with the law and got into serious street business, but for a lot of Samoans, SOS wasn't just about crime. It was about sticking together. For many, it felt more like a brotherhood than anything else, a way to keep their culture strong and protect their own. To the outside world, SOS might have just seemed like another rough crew with a bad rep, but for those on the inside, it was about way more than just power or turf. It was about making it in a world that was all too ready to forget them. And now, with their history tangled up with Eminem, Benzino possibly risking it all, and the tension reaching a boiling point, it feels like things are closer to exploding than ever.